Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is your boy CIZZY Live Action back at it again with another episode of, guess what? I've changed the name of this podcast so many times I almost forgot. Back at it again with an episode of Voices of Value, where we bring individuals that we really admire and think are dope. Whether it's been, maybe I've been thinking they're dope for a week, maybe I've been thinking they're dope for 6 years, but either way, we're all about just having dope entrepreneurs, creatives, people in different industries on the show. The main focus of this show for the guest to know as well, because I didn't explain that before we started. And then, just a reminder to anybody who's new is I started this show to inspire young Black and brown, people, youth really, to kind of aspire for different career paths and think that and believe and have hope that they can be successful in different paths outside of sports and hip hop. Now, I don't have anything against sports. I don't have anything against hip hop, but I feel like a lot of us growing up felt like those were the only two options we had in order to be successful. And that's just not the truth. So we just bring dope individuals on to kind of inspire and bring hope to the youth. And hopefully you guys find interest in the careers some of our guests are in. With that being said, let's go ahead and introduce our guest today. Julian, go ahead and say what's up to the people. Let them know who we have in the house.
Yeah, what's up, everybody? My name is Julian. Born and raised in Kansas City, aspiring to get out as soon as I can. Fan of the Chiefs. I am, let's see, what else? A big person in entrepreneurship. I love mentorship. I love, helping people with different resources, education and marketing and advertising and social media. So I'm happy to be here.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, man. Well, we'll jump right into it. Nickname is Juju from what I hear. Where did the nickname Juju come from? I know we could, if it was like this year, I would be like, oh, it was inspired by our new wide receiver on the Chiefs, but I know that it's not only a year old. So talk about the nickname, who gave it to you, how long have folks been calling you Juju? Is it just family? Is it just friends? Is it actually nobody at all? And I got that wrong.
So the name kind of just came from when I was in high school. Um, People used to call me Juju or Jew. A lot of my close friends call me Jew. I guess that's that's the indication like we're close if you just say Jew. Um, and yeah, outside of that, my grandmother's friend, long time ago, she used to call me Juju Bean. So it's just been a thing that people like to call me. I don't know why, but
Hey, but it works and it sounds good. So that's the key. That's the key.
yeah.
So you mentioned high school, man. Let's run it all the way back to the young days, man. Like I know you said KC Mo, born and raised. So for the local Kansas Cityans, where are you hailing from? Like where'd you go to elementary? Where'd you go to middle school? Like how did that experience growing up in the Kansas City metro area like shape who you are today?
Yeah. So I I went to Logan Elementary. So it's a foreign language school. Yeah, it's still around. I don't know where it's at now, but I started there. It was a French school mostly. So a lot of the stuff I was learning was like a little bit of English, but mostly French. Left there, and the school I went to from for about 10 years was University Academy. Started off in, I believe it was the fifth grade, and from fifth grade all the way through graduation, I've been at the same school. Um, but yeah.
I love that. We have to dive into the French immersion school a little bit. Do you remember any French from growing up? Have you held on to any of that? I know that was a long time ago, but like,
Um,
have you held on to any of that, or has there been any aspirations to travel to France or anything just due to that experience growing up?
yeah. So when I went to UA, it was about what year? It was sophomore year. Yeah, sophomore year, I decided to take French classes, and because it's either French or Spanish, and I'm like, I don't know Spanish, and I don't like Spanish, but French was something I'm used to. And ironically, so sophomore year, um, I learned French and everything, and then I got an opportunity to go to France my junior year. But the irony is that my teacher, my actual elementary teacher from Logan, was actually employed at my school while I was a junior in high school. So that was very ironic. But I got the chance to do that when I went to France. I got to learn so much more about French culture, their traditions, so many things that the people in US wouldn't even be thinking about doing. I think one of the biggest things that I took away from it was like Parisians like family time or even time they spend with their friends is valuable. Like it's very, very, very valuable. Like they'll sit at a dinner table for like 4 hours and have a whole different courses of meals and coffee in between. It's weird, but it works for their culture. And I'm like, dang, like we should be doing stuff like this because it really kind of helps strengthen bonds that you have with your friends, especially even more so with your family. So I really took that away. And then my French got a lot better. My teacher was saying when I came back, she was like, "Oh my God, you sound like a native." And I could tell from the way I was talking and things like that. So France is definitely one of the best places I have been to. And it's actually the only place I've been to out of the country.
That's
Definitely.
a big jump. Like in terms of a
Yeah.
first place to travel, like most people are typically going to pretty much Mexico. To be honest, like
Yeah.
most people's first place they travel to is Mexico. So that's really awesome that you got to travel in opposite direction. So I love that. I love that. So University Academy is where you graduate from, and like think back to when you were 17 or 18 years old. What was the plan? What did you think you were going to be? Were you like, I'm going to go to college and then enter this career path? Or were you like, nah, fam, I'm about to be a professional singer? Like, what was like in your head at 17, 18?
Um, so 17, 18, I had of like two different things I wanted to do. The first thing I wanted to do was I wanted to be a vet. For whatever reason, I held on to that same belief since I was a kid, and I was like dead set on it. But after further review throughout high school, I realized science is not my favorite subject. And I know like being a vet, there's gonna be a lot of science in there. And I was like, yeah, that's not gonna work. Then before we graduate and from UA, they do this thing where they ask you about your major and they post it up everywhere and do all this stuff. So I actually had locked in on business administration and management because I felt like I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I also wanted to learn about business. And then there was a side, like a small pocket of me that wanted to be in marketing, but I didn't know how I was going to get there. But my mentor, who showed me around his agency, and I pretty much was like, I wanted to follow in his footsteps. Like, I thought that was the right major to choose. So that's pretty much like how my mindset was during that time. And then I also wanted to minor in French. That was the other thing.
I love it. And you said you thought. So does that mean that, for, after further review, once again, later in life, reflecting back on your university experience, what actually ended up happening, and like why do you say you thought? What has changed in your mind since, 18-year-old Julian?
Yeah. I think so. My two of my weakest areas growing up were always science and math. And, one of the things in college that is kind of like, I don't want to say a benefit, but it kind of is, when people talk about different classes they're taking or the struggles multiple people have had. And a lot of that became deterrents of different things I was thinking about. So, for example, like going into business administration and management, my freshman year was easy as a breeze because I just took gen ed classes, so I didn't have to worry about those, those major classes. But when I got there and like I started learning more about the major, I started realizing business admin and management is not for me because you have to know a whole bunch of economics. You got to know this calculus, this calc. Not me. Like
Nada.
that's not me. I'm a firm believer of like, I feel like you should enjoy college. You should not be stressed out during college. You should not be, overly just boxed in your room and not really doing nothing. You should be experiencing college. And so I switched from switched from business administration and management to human resources because I thought, human resources is, a good option as well. But with human resources, there still was this math situation. And I'm like, outside of the gen ed math, I was like, I don't want to touch anything math related. So then went from HR, and then I moved to communication studies. And then with my minor, because I came in knowing that I wanted to minor in French, the problem with that was the dictation. So since I was a little removed from learning French, because I stopped taking French after junior year. So senior year, I never even took French again, and freshman year of college. So I was a little removed from it. So going back into it, it was overwhelming because the teacher was speaking French first day. And I'm like, oh no. So I changed my minor to mass media. And after further review, I realized that being a comm major actually helped me broaden the sense of what I wanted to do, because as a communication studies major, you could do so many different things. And having that mass media minor allows me to further look into things like journalism or film production or what else? Editing. Like, it's so many different things you can do with just comm studies and a media minor. So I was like, okay, this is perfect. And pretty much after I decided to do that, I think this was the second semester of my sophomore year, I fell in love with the major because the classes were just amazing, like 10 out of 10. Like I couldn't ask for nothing different. The mass media side, I wish I literally saw a post on LinkedIn recently, and it was like, if you can go back, what would you have done differently as far as like your majors and stuff? And I said I would have double majored actually in communication studies and in film and mass media, because I really enjoyed the media aspect, and I also enjoyed film because I wanted to. I further realized I wanted to work in entertainment, so I didn't know how I was going to do that, but learning, getting to learn all those things from a comm background and a media background, I was like, okay, this is everything I want. And then I finally came down to wanting to work in marketing about junior year in college. And then from there, I just started to figure out what did I need to learn, because I felt like I didn't need to go to school for marketing to learn marketing. Because in my organization, I was already running the social media and making sure things was going out. So I'm like, I already kind of understand it. I just need to figure out, everything I need to know about this profession. So, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And before we dive into your career path a little bit more, I want to double back. You talked about, university wanting to feel like it's an experience and not being boxed in. So, I don't know if in this video it was you, but Most Date 2018 Homecoming, there was a stage performance, doing some research on your Facebook. I don't know if that got to do with you or if that's family, but I know you was doing something entertaining was going on stage. Do you want to
Most
talk about
likely.
that? If you
Yes,
remember what I'm talking about.
I think I do. So I actually, let's see. I committed a taboo technically in college. And what I mean by that is I joined a Greek letter organization my freshman year of college. And at the time, it felt like the right thing to do. Um, I definitely realized, like, I didn't understand what I was getting into necessarily. I knew it was for the brotherhood and scholarship and service, but I didn't know, like, there's business aspects you got to learn, and there's all these things you have to, pick up as far as running an organization, maintaining it financially, everything. Um, so part of being a part of that organization, there is some community responsibilities we're held responsible for. So, i.e., performing for different events, being a part of step shows, uh, you know, community service, and being just a part of the university as a whole. And 2018, yeah, I remember that. I do remember that. But things have, it definitely was a big turn for me as far as like things like my personality and growth that I experienced. That was a big turn in my life, which I don't, like I said, I don't regret. I definitely think that it was worth it.
I love it. I think like when we do things that are uncomfortable and outside of the box, it normally kind of forces growth, whether we particularly enjoyed that growth or not. But at the end of the day, you know, there's definitely a lot that comes out of it. And I'm sure there's a lot of individuals you met during that time period that, you know, had an impact, whether positive or negative, we always learn, you know. So
Mhm.
I love that. I love that. So yeah, let's jump into marketing, man. You've had experiences at, you know, two huge organizations in the advertising, marketing, media space in general. So I don't even never know how to say it, but VMLOYR, VMLOYR, VMLOYR. And then your, I believe it might be your current company that you're working at, Eisenberg. If I said that right either, shoot, you're gonna have to correct me on that. But either way, these are two really big organizations I've seen lots and lots of people work for that are in a similar industry as you, and they're powerful organizations. So can you talk about, you know, your experience at both of those companies, starting with the local you know, VML.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. With VML, so it's VML YNR. Um, so the
Say it with
biggest,
your chest.
the start of that was from my mentor. So my mentor, he worked at VML back when it was called just VML, and
Quick pause. So is your mentor don't tell me because I feel so bad for the name coming to my head. If it is who I think it is, he gonna be mad at me for not remembering his name. Wow. I am brain farting. We talking about Swole Buddy, small little Swole Buddy, little
uh,
no? Okay, okay. Well, I was thinking of somebody that works at a big agency here that be mentoring people, but I can't remember his name. But sorry, continue going. Sorry.
um, my mentor, he was actually, oh God, how long have we known each other? Every time we see each other, it's like, how long we know each other? So he was my big brother from Big Brothers Big Sisters back when I was like 13 or 14. And he's pretty much is the main reason why I wanted to work in advertising. He showed me around the agency, introduced me to so many people. I don't even know any of these people's faces. I can't remember it, but it was a pretty impactful experience because I'm like, so this is what it's like to be like an adult and grown and working at a huge agency. Like, I kind of like this. And from there, I kept applying for internships at the agency. I didn't qualify or I didn't get it at the time. I wasn't hurt, but I still held true to the fact that I wanted to work there. And in what was it? Fall of 2020, I got an offer from VML, and I was just super excited. Jumped right in. Started last year, and pretty much, I mean, I started working with so many different teams. I got to meet so many different people from all over. Um, and, you know, this is still during the heat of the pandemic where, you know, everybody was working from home. So it was just so much, um, so many Zoom calls and so many Teams calls because, you know, we're missing that FaceTime aspect. So really got to know a lot of my team. I worked on 3 different accounts at BML. So I started off working on Intel. So the Intel, you know, core processor, working strictly on the B2B side of marketing. So the business to business, and transitioned from that client and started working on Dick's Sporting Goods. And I remember explicitly saying, you know, I am open to doing whatever, moving however, but just don't tag me with sports. Like, just don't, please. Because although I did play football in high school and that was pretty much it as far as me in sports, I played football and I did track. I was like, I'm not a big sports guy. Like, I can't even tell you how many times people talk to me about football and basketball just in passing. And I'm like, yeah,
You'd be like this.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And I just have to agree because it just, so they just won't feel awkward, I guess, but I'm already awkward. So um, I took the opportunity because I saw it as an opportunity for me to challenge myself as far as working in the industry to say that I have versatility. Because I think that's one of the things I do pride myself on is, you know, throughout my career, I have been super versatile in a lot of different areas and getting to touch on marketing in so many different verticals that I felt like I'm ready for the challenge. So, you know, I got to work on Dick's Sporting Goods, help with strategy. I did, you know, some community management. I helped with some influencer work. I got to do a good amount of things. And what I gained from working on that account is obviously the, you know, number one thing. I learned a lot about sports, like a good amount. So now I'm like, okay, now I feel like this is not an outside world. I feel like I'm in it now. I understand it because I always felt like outsider when people talk about sports. Like I just feel like, what are you talking about, LeBron? Why do you keep talking about LeBron? Like I can't. I just was like, I don't. So now, you know, after experiencing that, I really got a good handle on that. Um, and then in the later part of VML, I got to work on FedEx, which again is another opportunity where it's a challenge because um, you know, what kind of marketing does a shipping service need to do? You know, outside of run some advertisements here and there, people automatically use the service. So it's not really, you know, that's the initial impression that I had, but I thought of it as still as a challenge for me because I'm like, this is perfect. So I got to pretty much do the same thing on that account, community management, strategy.
If you're
Uh,
comfortable touching on, I would love to like dive into that a little bit more, just for people who might be interested. What were some things that like a company like that was focused on when it comes to trying to get the word out or build brand or build relationships with their customers? Are they like, let's get on TikTok. We want to start making people laugh, like, you know, whatever you're can or comfortable sharing. Yeah, like what was that like working with the logistics service and in the media space and trying to get the word out for a company that's already so huge? Like what were those conversations like? What were you guys focused on?
and is that for any of the clients that I was talking about, or what do you?
Specifically, the shipping service you just mentioned. Just because a
Yeah,
lot of people are probably like, "You're right. What do they have to talk about? Like, what are they? Who are they going to market to?"
right. So they were challenging. Not gonna lie. I think the biggest thing, I gotta reassess my memories. So the biggest thing for FedEx was they weren't trying to push the boundaries of being culturally relevant. I think they were more so on the sense they wanted to make sure they kept the lights on and made sure that, you know, they were still pumping out relevant content for the audience that people already are accustomed to or used to, and really highlighting, you know, certain things that I wouldn't expect for, you know, shipping service to do. So it would be like, you know, customer appreciation or you know, talking about people who took pictures with civilians when they delivered a package because they were so excited and delighted about receiving their FedEx package. And I didn't even realize people would actually be taking candid photos of FedEx drivers and or giving them cookies or presents. I didn't even know any of that. So I thought that was a very light thing that I didn't know about the service.
There's
Um,
definitely, sorry to interrupt, but I just want to touch on like some culturally, you know, in terms of internet, culturally relevant, you know, things around FedEx and UPS drivers and things of that nature. Everybody knows that one UPS driver or FedEx driver that sprints from the truck to the house and back and doesn't stop sprinting. They just
yeah.
like a little mouse, and they just like drop it, pick it
Yeah.
up. And I used to be catching this one dude. Like I used to work this labor job, you know, cleaning up yards and construction spots, and this one dude would deliver every day, and he ran to every house. You know how they have like two people on the truck, one person driving, the other dude would come in, he'd like run, and then he'd run like a little mouse, and then drop it, and then run back, and they just cracked me up. I'm like, yeah, this could be some great content for social if somebody caught this.
Yeah, yeah. I think there was only one thing I remember that it was funny because I guess these people were doing like a photo shoot or something, and the guy was like lifting this woman up in the air, and it was like an airplane in the background, a sunset kind of look, and you just see this FedEx truck driving right behind them, like super funny. And I think, moving forward for that brand, I think they have some opportunity to kind of um, become more relevant culture wise. Because they could have definitely used that opportunity to repost it on social media. They could have did a lot of things with that. But I think they still are in the stepping stone stage as far as their marketing and strategies and things like that.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. And by the way, I was talking about Adam BI at Barkley. Adam, bro, I'm sorry,
Oh
dog.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
Adam. I was forgetting your name, my boy. I appreciate. If you listen to this
Oh
episode, I'm
yeah.
sorry, my guy. I still got your Nike face mask from the last workout. I'm sorry. I'm gonna give it back too. My bad, Adam. But yeah, man. You mentioned you were interested in business, and that's kind of what got you, interested in those specific degree paths and career paths when you were headed into college. Like, are you still, interested? Is there any entrepreneurial itch that you've been thinking about, considering, or already dabbling in? Maybe I just didn't catch it while doing my research. What is like when you think about spaces, areas that you think you might want to interrupt or create in? What comes to mind?
So first thing that comes to mind is working in entertainment. So I have started to work on screenwriting. So definitely want to get into that as much as possible. Screenwriting is an entrepreneurship by itself because it's a hustle. It's 100% a hustle. Um, and it's also challenging, right? Because, everybody thinks that their stuff might be the best, right? And for me, I don't think like that. I think my focus in with the screenwriting has been focusing more on the material itself and also focusing on the story. I don't care about, does everybody like it? Like it's the story and the material that I really want to sell to the audience and to whoever producer, whoever wants to buy it. And that's pretty much been like, one of the things like I've been researching, looking into very heavily, um, and just really exploring because it's a cool business. It's just
Yeah.
super complex.
It's super complex. And then also just the amount of like creative, drive an individual needs to have in that space, is out of this world. Like it's essentially writing a book, but in a much more descriptive way, and having to think about cameras and how it's going to look and who's going to play this role, and and then obviously, like you said, telling the best story, going back to just, the whole purpose of a book, the whole purpose of a movie, the whole purpose of content. Like the space you're in, the whole purpose of marketing and advertising is who can tell the best story. And if you can tell the best story, you have the best likelihood of winning or finding success. And that might not even be the focus. Like you said, you're really just focused on telling a great story and the content itself. But when you can tell an amazing story that really connects with the listener, connects with the viewer, connects with the whoever, the podcast listener, whatever it might be that you're creating, like the power that you can demand, the money you can demand, the attention you can demand, or that you can bring in is powerful. So, attention is the asset. So I think that those two are connected really well, like the career path you're already in and screenwriting. So I love to hear that that's something you're interested in. We're gonna have to chop it up off air. You dig what I'm saying? Because I need to be in a movie. Do you hear me? But there's a few other things I would like to touch on in regards to you know, college, career, things of that nature, but more from an advice standpoint. So, like when you think back to your college experience and 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old, what advice would you give to another smart, driven college student like yourself that's about to enter the real world, of marketing and advertising, or just in general? What advice do you have for them, and what advice do you think they should ignore?
Ooh, um, so few things here. So the first thing is, you know, I hate to admit it, but before I walked the stage, I had the biggest epiphany moment. Like I never would forget it because I was so bitter because I was thinking after I did so much extensive research and working in the industry and all it takes and all these things, I'm like, so I didn't have to go to college. I could have just learned everything off YouTube. Like I was I was mad because I was so mad. And but like I said before, the experience is invaluable, regardless if it is HBCU or PWI. It was super valuable for me to attend college. It helped me professionally, it helped me personally. So many things I got and learned that I've carried into my adult life. And one of the things that because I always have people who reach out to me, college students, people who are currently in the industry trying to look for a new job, or they just need, mentorship or guidance. I pretty much have a good ground, like a good layout of things that they should be working on and things that they should be trying to figure out the next step for. And for me, I think the biggest thing that people can, hone in on if you want to work in this industry is not only specialize. So I know there's this notion about working in advertising and marketing that certain companies have made it seem that you need to have all these experience of working on websites, SEO, Google, Bing, like all of these different things. You need to have experience in them in order for us to give you an entry level marketing manager position. And I think the notion or the perception needs to change, and it needs to be more distilled education to college students, especially when they're young. Because if I knew what I knew now, going into like even freshman year of college, I think life would have been a lot different. I think I would have probably had way more clients. I would have had way more experience than I do now. And so going back to the whole specialization thing, when I was in school, I started my own business, and what was it? It was 2019. Um, First client I ever had, NBA YoungBoy. First client
Wow,
out the door.
right off the door, right?
And you know, the job that I was hired for was basically just to get the word out. And that was through Facebook ads and Instagram ads. Did I know how to do that? No, like I didn't know anything. But what I learned to do is taking it back to my roots of my work history. My first job as a teenager was working at Worlds of Fun. Never will forget it. I worked at Oceans of Fun. Never deal with a cash register. I remember shaking, giving people money because that was like nerve wracking. And like I told you before, math and science are my two worst subjects. So nervous out the gate. But I learned from that organization that I am the type of person, like, you can throw me in a lot of different situations and I'm going to pick it up and learn. I'm going to ask questions in between, but I'll pretty much know it in a week or two. And with that situation with NBA YoungBoy, it was like, okay, I don't know how to make an ad. I don't know how to run it, but I'm going to figure it out. And there was a lot of success I got from that because the ticket sales went out the roof. The concert was packed. And if you compare the things that I was bringing in versus the street team, we're incomparable because, they're on the ground. You can't monitor that. You can't see that. You can only go based off their word versus mine is actual analytics, actual tangible things you can, take with you. And, from that, I thought like, okay, doing photography and videography would be another thing I want to specialize in. And I kept growing and growing and went into content creation, went into graphic design. But after all of that, I realized specializing in something saves you all that time. So whether that is you are a content creator and you want to create content, own it, or if you are a data nerd, like you love data, you love analytics, you love figuring things out, do it, but hone in on it. Obviously, although you should specialize, don't pigeonhole yourself. Always keep things available for you to keep retaining and learning, but be your main point, one thing. Um, and for me, I always found myself, since everything I've done, I'm pretty much like I said, I'm super versatile in a lot of areas. So I usually tailor things based off of my experience and then also what the job needs. Like my current job is at Eisenberg, so that's how I say Eisenberg. Working at Eisenberg, I work on a division called Ion. So Ion specifically works with influencers for all these different brands. And I actually did a kind of a merry-go-round. I actually worked back on Intel at Eisenberg.
I was literally about to ask about that because I just connected with Austin Knoll a few weeks ago, and
Oh yeah, that's my manager.
right, yeah, and he's a good guy though. He's a good guy. I just connected with him a few weeks ago, and he was talking about working on Intel as a project, and then I just saw that he went out to Oregon for a little giving stuff away to college students or something like that. So I was waiting for you to see if you were gonna say that you worked on Intel here, because I was gonna ask, isn't that funny that now? But I was like, let me
Yeah,
see if he says something. Sorry, continue.
yeah. Um, and I'm used to working in all my history, working day to day social media, like that is my bread and butter. I always tell any client that I work with my limitations, things I can do, I cannot do. But that was my specialty. It's just social media. I kept up with all of the apps, every new update, all of that. And again, going back to the challenging aspect, going over to Ion, this is influencer marketing. This is an area that I've lightly touched throughout the years, but never really dived into. And it's been such a challenging but great experience for me, getting to work with influencers from the outreach stage to the onboarding to the contracting, through them, going live with their content, through all those stages. It's been super insane as far as how much experience I've gained from it. And with that, it's like, if I wanted to blend my passion for social media and then influencer marketing, it's a huge synergy between both of them, because that's where influencer posted.
Exactly.
But being able to grab my skills of content strategy, or making sure the influencer is posting optimally when they have the most people online looking at their content, that's where I've been able to blend those two together. um, so yeah, that is that. And I do think that young people, as they are, I know they have a fixed mindset on a lot of things. But I do feel like if you really want to save yourself time, that you, again, focus on one thing and own it. Give yourself opportunity to still create branches, but again, the main thing should always be the top priority.
I love it.
Um, and the other, I think the one last thing I would say is, when it comes to, which is, I mean, maybe I'm myth busting right now, I don't know, but what I learned from being a comm major has been superficial. It has been the best thing that I ever could do. Versus when you're a marketing major, they have a tailored way. I don't know about all schools, I'm just speaking from my own school. They have a tailored way of how they want you to learn, what they want you to learn. And based on like some conversations I've had with other students, the things that I was able to teach them about social media marketing, they're like, you're teaching me more than what I'm learning in class. So I'm like, well, maybe you should change your major. If and I always tell people, just look at the practical skills that you really want to learn. And, does my major fit all those things that I'm looking for? Um, with com studies, I learned so much about human behavior, communication, being able to understand certain nonverbal and verbal communication cues and aspects, that help me understand more about how to understand job interviews, when a recruiter is kind of like, or when they're really delighted when you're talking, you can tell all of that. But if you didn't know all of those things, you wouldn't know that, oh, this interview, I tanked the interview because I'm saying everything wrong. Versus when you are understanding and you understand that mutual respect that the person interviewing you and you have for each other, it's like the best interview experience. I've had really good experiences these past few years. I've had some really great experiences. Like, I'm like, you want to go get a drink, have coffee or something? Like, even if I didn't get the job, like I like our vibe. Like, I've literally had that experience so many different times. So yeah,
I love
um,
it. I
yeah.
love it. I think one thing that really stands out to me that I wish, I could adopt, and that more people not wish I could adopt, but wish I could have adopted earlier, and could stay a little bit focused on, is just like choosing a niche, choosing a specific area, a specific skill to master. And once you do that, kind of like you said about, you can still, branch off in little areas, but the reality is you're going to get pulled in so many directions, into so many industries, into so many rooms, into so many meetings, that you're going to get enough exposure to have a foundational understanding or skill set in other areas as well, simply because you've mastered one skill, and now you're demanding everyone's wants your attention. So it's like, okay, I've mastered influencer marketing, but now this now the branding department wants you to come in to talk to them about this, and then this department wants you to come in and talk to them about this, and then this department wants you to come in and share with them like what you've learned with, in these real life experiences with people who actually are fans of the brand. Like, so you get called into so many meetings, into so many different rooms, that the exposure is
Mhm.
there and you learn from
Yeah.
exposure. So I think just mastering a skill, sticking to something, is definitely a major key that, 18, 19-year-olds could jump on right now. And by the time you hit 2021, if you spend enough time on a skill, you're going to be pretty dope.
Yeah, God, I'm trying to think. I actually found out that if you are an influencer, let's just say you started off at 17 making dance videos, and now you're like 23. If you wanted to, you could apply for a job as an influencer manager. You could apply for a job as a talent manager like me and get the job easy because you have such a foundational experience of understanding from a creator's perspective. You can sell a lot of things through, simply because it's like, well, this is a trending sound. This is why we like this person. And you'll be making a lot of money on the side. I mean, this is your main job, but you also content creator. It's a dual, investment, and you're making a lot of money. So I didn't know that that you could just be a content creator and get like full-time job and everything like that. Um, one of the things that I wanted to say, because I'm terrible with quotes. I'm super terrible with like quote for word. But one of the things that happened to me in my life was, so I had like it's not a midlife crisis, but it kind of was like I guess a quarter crisis, whatever you want to call it. And it was my junior year, summer of 20, no, senior year, summer of 2019. I panicked because I'm like, I'm trying my best and trying to get all this experience and trying to put my name out there, trying to be seen and things like that. But unfortunately, and I just didn't have the opportunity. I had to create these opportunities. That's why I opened up my own business and started doing photography and videography and all these different things because I was really trying to create a foundation for myself. That was, the heart and soul of how I got started. And one of the best things that I forever will take with me um, is there was a quote by Tyler Perry at a BET Awards. And, he said, while you guys are fighting to sit at the table, I'm going to go make my own down in Atlanta, you know. that was like mind blowing to me because I wasn't given opportunity, and I've been fighting a seat at this table for God knows how long. And when I decided, the winter, before 2019, I was going to buy a camera. I didn't care it cost $400. I was going to buy it, and I was going to invest in myself, and I was going to create this foundation for myself. What's the chance to work with NBA YoungBoy as your first client? That the chances are very low. And then getting the opportunity to create some graphics for Yana Van Zant from, Fix My Life. I think that's the name of the show. Like being able to really do that stuff really helped me down the long run. And I've just been building on more and more of my experiences and really trying to just be more out there. But yeah.
Invest in yourself, ladies and gentlemen, and don't wait for others to create opportunity for you. Create opportunity for yourself. It's actually funny. The Tyler Perry quote you're talking about is the quote of the week that I sent out during my last newsletter this past week. So that's kind of funny. And as soon as you started talking about it, I was like, I know what he's about to say. But nah, I love it. I love it. So, on the topic of advertising, if you could have a, big ass billboard anywhere in the world on any street with anything on it, metaphorically speaking, what would it say? And why would it say that? Like a big billboard anywhere that you could get a message to, millions of people driving by or flying by. If it's a big enough billboard, what would it say and why?
God. Ooh. Huh. What would I say? Um okay, so this might be something. I think I would have it say in big words, keep being weird.
What
And
does
then
weird mean to you?
to me, weird is odd. Weird is, again, odd, strange, the kid that sits in the corner of the class, weird, but creative at the same time. That's what makes like that even more interesting to me. Um, I've always thought of myself as weird from from birth till now. I know as a baby you can be thinking, oh, how am I weird? But that's just how I've always felt. I never felt like an outcast, but I always felt like there was something else about me, something ingeniously crazy but weird, and that's been the focal point of my whole life. And I think that although, we live in times where it's tough and we live in times where the world is just a ball of craziness, the weirdos are still winning. Believe it or not, you have plenty of weirdos that are um, rappers, R&B artists, so many people. And that's why, being weird should not be something that is demeaned or something that is looked at as negative. It's a super positive thing, you know. I definitely think that would be something that I would want to put on a billboard.
I love it. I love it. And so we're gonna jump into kind of some quick fire really quick.
Okay.
You mentioned that you're a nerdy gamer. So what games do you play, or what games do you think are interesting, or what games should people out there that have never gamed before like get into?
Oof. The games I like to play is I like to play role playing games. So either role playing, Japanese RPG, shooting, fighting games, and fantasy. So out of all of those, Call of Duty is always number one for me. And Kingdom Hearts is also one of my favorite franchises, like to date. Um, and I think that the game that I am looking forward to playing, that I probably will be locked in my apartment and not coming out for about a week or two, is the game that's coming out hopefully in February, which is the Hogwarts Legacy game, because I'm a huge Harry Potter fan as well.
Which is
Um,
perfect because that leads us into our next quick fire. We're gonna do a little
okay.
trivia, a little Harry Potter trivia.
Oh no.
I'm gonna ask you 10 questions. We're gonna do sort of rapid fire. If you don't know, just say you don't know, and then I'll say what it is. And then I'll ask you our final 2 questions for the day before we wrap up. Sound fair?
Yep, sounds good.
Awesome. All right. Who is Harry Potter's godfather?
That is Sirius Black.
Boom. Answer correct. What is Voldemort's real name?
Tom Marvolo Riddle.
Beautiful. Answered correct. What is the British term for a non-magical person?
A Muggle.
Perfect. 3 for 3. Who is not in Gryffindor? Harry Potter, Ron Weasley, Draco Malfoy, or Genie Weasley?
Draco Malfoy.
4 for 4. What is Harry's middle name?
James.
5 for 5. What year do Hogwarts students take OWLs?
That would be in their 5th year.
Oh my God. 6 for 6. Who sent Harry his firebolt?
His godfather.
Perfect. 7 for 7. Which Weasley dies during the final battle of Hogwarts?
Oh, that one's hard because I always get them mixed up.
It's easy to
I
get
think
twins mixed up.
I think it was Fred.
You're correct. 8 for 8. What magazine does Xenophilus Lovegood publish? This one's hard.
The Quibble.
Damn, you're good. Okay, the Quibbler, but that's still
Quibbler,
right.
Yeah.
Which incantation can levitate an object? You gotta do the hand thing with it.
I actually have a wand too. Wingardium Leviosa.
There we go. 10 for 10. My guy's a real Harry Potter fan, ladies and gentlemen. He just got 10 for 10 correct on the Harry Potter trivia. That was some good shit. I thought you were gonna get some wrong. You didn't get any wrong. Awesome. Okay, man. So we're gonna run it back to one of your tweets. And one of your tweets, you said R&B has never been the same for you since you grew up with 106 in Park. What was one of your favorite things from 106 in Park while you were like growing up as a young teen? Who was your favorite host, or what was your favorite performance? Like, what's your favorite memory of 106 in Park?
I think honestly, what I always look forward to the most with that show was the performances, the live performances for the audience. I really look forward to those because the timing was always good because we weren't run by social media during that time frame. So the timing was always good because they had either a popular song that just came out and they did a show, or they were up and coming and then they did a show. So that's what I look forward to. I always loved the host, even how interchangeable they became. But
yeah, towards the
end. But I really always enjoy watching it. And I just saw this I think it was on the Shade Room or Hollywood Unlocked, but I guess a resurfaced old rumor about Sierra came back. And I was like, I remember that. And I remember her addressing it on 106
in Park.
Yeah. Yep. And I'm like, dang, like, this is old.
Man, hella old. I love it. Yo, by the way, quick shout out to any of the journalists on the Shade Room or Hollywood Unlocked. If you have been over there for over a year, I'd love to have you on the podcast just to chop it up about your job, about your role. So I had to put that quick shout out there just in case we get a random listener from one of those spots. Okay, my final question of the day, brother, is side note, 106 in Park, Kanye versus 50 Cent was one of the best little situations of all time. But all right, running it back. Final question of the day. It's your last day on earth. You've lived to be 125 years old, as long as you've wanted to live. You've done all the great things you've wanted to do. But your great-great-grandkids are sitting in front of you, and all the books, all the movies, all the cool influencer campaigns you've ever done are deleted on your last day of life. So your grandkids can't remember you for anything but what you tell them right now. And they ask you, great grandpa, give me one piece of advice on how to live a good life. What are you going to tell them?
That's geez. Continue I think about this. I would tell them continue to love one another and always remember that you'll make mistakes. Remember that life is not going to be easy. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it. And always stay true to your roots. Always never forget where you come from either. Strive to be the best that you can always be. Even, if things get tough and you might bump, fall, trip, all those things, continue to be great and strive for greatness. Learn as much as you can and use that for whatever it can be worth, because you are special and you're worth it.
I love it. Great grandkids of Julian. I hope y'all hear that in the next generations. Much love, man. Julian, I've appreciated this conversation today. Thank you for giving me the past 60 minutes of your time. It's really been an enjoyable conversation, getting to know a little bit about your story, how you grew up, some of your early interests, and your transition into your now career in marketing. And I look forward to seeing what you do in the screenwriting space, in the entrepreneurship space, and the marketing space. And hopefully we can work together in one of those spaces in the coming, years or months or decades, whatever it might be, whenever God wants it to be, man. So appreciate you. Is there any social media channels, any business endeavors, anything you'd like to plug on our sign up?
I would definitely say make sure to connect with me on LinkedIn, my Instagram, which is Julian _McGhee. Pretty basic. I didn't want to do all that extra, put all the numbers and Ebonics. I don't do all
Juju the 34 from 31st and University Academy.
That's no. But yeah, I think those are the main things I would say. If people ever are looking for any social media help, freelancing, I'm always down to help. Consulting, even just mentorship, always down to help. But yeah.
I love it. I love it. And ladies and gentlemen, I'll make sure to link either his LinkedIn or his Instagram in the description, either on YouTube or on Apple, Spotify podcast, wherever you're listening. Just check the description. You should be able to find more information about the young man in front of us. This is your boy CIZZY signing out of another episode of the Voices of Value podcast. Please leave a 5-star review, as that is the only way we can grow. Yeah, we out.